Need clicker?
Not drawer.
It's in my drawers. What's it doing in your drawers?
Yeah, that's where it goes.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing today, wasn't it?
Yeah, the drawer.
Yeah, Shannon had drawers.
Yeah.
His grandma put, gum in his drawers every morning.
Candy drawer.
Yeah.
Gum, gum,
Yeah, gummy drawer.
gum in his drawer. Is that where you been chewed or what?
Never did get that far.
We just stopped right there.
No, she had a set of drawers that she'd put, stick of gum in for each kid. Agos goes, my grandma used to put a stick of gum in our drawer every day when we were there. So, you know, it kind of, you know, with this group, you can go in the other direction sometimes. So,
This group you better guard what you say.
yes. All right, so I got a little quiz up tonight. And again, thank you, Tiffany. I didn't know if Patricia had knocked the TVs off, so I didn't mess with it too much. So thank you for getting that turned on. All right, so,
That's actually pretty amazing.
the TV,
No, that right there.
The question,
the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
118 is the middle of the Bible.
118A.
118A is the middle of the Bible. 117 is the shortest chapter. 119 is the longest chapter.
117 is just, I think, one verse, I believe. I think I looked that up the other day. Look at that, I turned right to chapter 119. It's awesome. Yeah, it's 2 verses long. It's chapter 117, the shortest chapter in the Bible. And and then the longest is Psalms 119. And the thing you can do with Psalms 119 that's interesting is it comes in 8 sections of 8 verses at a time. And it all kind of starts with the letter of the alphabet. It goes by the alphabet of the Hebrew Bible. So each section, and there's 30 of those. So you can read chapter Psalms 119, 8 verses every day for 30 days, you've completed it. So you just think that's 240 verses.
They've got a name for that too. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, but then also, again, the center of the Bible, Psalms 118. I got 8 and 9, okay? I'm going to read that to you really quick, because I mean, it's really, when you read those 2 verses, it's just amazing, okay? Psalms 118, verses 8 and 9. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humanity. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in nobles. Just good old common sense. Godly common sense there. You know, so I don't know if that helped you out at all or not, but just kind of interesting. I remember
Amazing.
years ago a guy shared that with me, and I've never forgotten it. Dick, Rusty Garrett, Tammy's husband. So, Tammy Monroe, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, there you go. You got a little bit of knowledge there. I wasn't necessarily Bible like we have been doing, but a little different. Well, you lost Herbert Crowder, it looks like. I think they heard what we were talking about and didn't want to do that. I kind of scared them off, didn't I? Talking about that circumcision, they were like, oh, I don't want any part of that. So they stayed home, I guess. So that's what we're going to look at here. I put a little title to it, Cutting and Laughing, okay? Because in these section of verses, there's some laughing that goes on. Not because of the cutting, but there is some laughing. I thought that's kind of, unusual in God's Word, laughing going on. All right. So let's start here in Genesis chapter 17. Just might want to read verses 1 and 2 for us.
When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God, walk before me, be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly.
Okay. Yeah, so again, if you look up the verse before verse 1, remember, as we finished off Sunday night, Abram was 86 years old. So between those 2 verses, 13 years have passed by. And so again, just think about that. I guess we've talked about that now we're up to, what is that, 24 years that Abram has been, I'm going to say, walking with God, following Him, His guidance, and God keeps reminding him, hey, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to give you many descendants. Okay, I'm going to give you this land. And what does Abraham have so far? Not one. Huh?
He's got Ishmael.
Yeah, he's got Ishmael, yep. That's true. That's true. But again, like we talked about last or Sunday night, that's not what God had promised. Okay? But again, we're going to see tonight too, like I said, Sunday night, again, God's love for Hagar and Ishmael, but also tonight we're going to see what God does for Ishmael. Okay? Again, that to me, that's an amazing thing there. Okay? I'm going to read here a few verses here, 3 through 8. And again, I like what happens right here. God says that in verses 1 and 2. Then what does Abraham do? It says that Abram fell face down and God spoke with him. As for me, here is my covenant with you. You'll become the father of many nations. You will no longer be Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I'll make you the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful, and will make nations and kings come from you. I will confirm my covenant. I will confirm my covenant that is between me and you and your future offspring throughout their generations. It is a permanent covenant to be your God and the God of your offspring after you. And to you and your future offspring I will give the land where you are residing, all the land of Canaan, as a permanent possession, and I will be their God. I mean, again, in chapter 16, we saw that covenant, with the animals and stuff, and again, how about God walking through that? And here again, I think just the reminder, God keeps reminding Abraham about what he's going to do in his life. And again, we saw, Sunday night when we started off, I said that Abram was kind of down, kind of in the dumps, a little bit. Nothing's happened. And I think about that again, like I said, in our own lives. Just think, if you go 24 years, I'm going to say working for somebody, and they've made these promises, and yet you don't see them coming true, how do you feel? How do you feel? And a lot, and again, as believers, we're going to go to God and say, man, God, what do I do? Can I trust this person? Is it going to happen? And it's easy for us to, again, like I said, Sunday night, kind of like Abram and Sarai did, they made a wrong decision. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't what God had decided for them. Okay? But again, he changes his name here in verse 5. Again, I've got up there, Abram meant exalted father. Abraham means father of many. Okay? And then here a little bit later, he's going to change Sarai's name to Sarah. And as I studied that, I kind of looked to see what was the difference. And really, it's a good debate, good talk about that. But basically, it means my princesses, or my princess. And so, the reason, like the Sarah, they said S-A-R in the Hebrew means prince. So the H would add princess. And so, that's, again, some people want to say, it meant, when they changed it to Sarah, that maybe it meant that she would be the princess to many. Okay? So probably her descendants and stuff. Okay? So, but again, remember that, he went from an exalted father, now he's going to be Abraham, making him father to many. And then in verse 7 there, I will confirm my covenant that is between me and you and your future offspring throughout their generation. Again, God is saying, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Again, this is my promise to you. And so again, think about just how God's promises are so true and so real in our lives. Anybody want to read, I got 9 through 14. Anybody want to read all that or part of it? 9 through 14, chapter 17.
Then God said to Abraham, "As for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring, whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant."
Okay, thank you, Myron. So there again, we're talking about the circumcision. And again, you know, we can make that the big deal, but again, that promise that God gives through the circumcision. Hey, if you're not circumcised, you know what? You're going to miss out on the blessings that I have, you know, for you, for your family. Okay? And again, you know, and it wasn't just limited to Abraham and his children. It was, you know, went to everybody in his household. His servants, whether they were born in his house or if they bought them and brought them in, it was to all of them. And I think, you know, that's something that is neat and interesting to consider, that, you know, he didn't just limit it to certain people in the household, but to all of them. Now again, you know, if you're 8 days old, you know, that was something that was done, you know, throughout the Bible, you know, after this time. But then the rest of them, you know, as we talked about a little bit, you were a grown man. And, you know, Abraham had to do this at 99 years old. Okay. Look at this also, and we're going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to jump to it though. But remember, Ishmael has to do that too, and he's 13 years old. Okay. So, you know, it's one of those things when we got to go to Africa, back in 2008, we got to stay out with the Maasai and stuff, and I'll show you, I got a little thing to show you next week. But we stayed out there, and again, those young men, as they get teenage years, they will become a warrior and stuff, and they get to wear different clothes, but they also, again, go through that circumcision in order to become a warrior. Okay? And so again, just imagine that, 13, 14 years old still today. Hey, out there in the bush where there's no doctors or nothing like that, it's just, you know, out there. Okay? And so, you know, so again, you know, so that still happens today to older young men, you know, especially in those countries over there, where that's a sign of you becoming a warrior. You know, I don't remember, a little trivia fact here, a little movie fact. If you remember, maybe 80s, 90s, Kevin Bacon was in a basketball movie where he was this coach, and he watched this video and saw this guy in Africa that was like 7 foot something, and so he got a hold of the Catholic Church over there, and he got to go check it out. Well, in order to get this guy to come back to the States to play basketball for him, his dad was the chief. His dad made Kevin Bacon, the character he played, go through the whole ritual of becoming a warrior, and then he had to get the circumcision in order for his son to go with him to play basketball. I thought, wow, that's a commitment by a coach, isn't it? To do that, you know? So,
So why do you think that God chose this to seal the covenant?
why do I think? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it takes a pretty big commitment on a man's part to do this.
Yeah, yeah. At that time, yeah. I mean, nowadays,
So he's asking for a big commitment, in other words, to seal the covenant.
and just, I mean, and think about that a little bit, I mean, you know, it's, as far as we know, it's never been done before.
Doesn't say so anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't say so. So again, Abraham is doing this for the first time. And again, he's trusting what God's telling him to do. I'm sure, you know, there's probably more into the story than just what we read.
What would have been your reaction when God told you?
Anyone else up there?
Excuse me,
Did I misunderstand you?
would you mind repeating that?
I had a friend when I was in the Navy, and when I was in the Navy, he was 21,
A friend with
and he never been circumcised, he had that in the boy ship. And yeah, it was about 3 weeks.
Why?
Why?
He's good at the Navy, and we're Navy in it.
Huh?
It's
The Navy did it.
It's swelling.
Why?
Why did you do it?
Huh?
Why?
They never been circumcised,
So?
so he wanted to be circumcised.
Why?
I can't.
What I business?
All right.
Why did God say 8 when they're 8 days old?
I think because it's less pain.
No, there's a reason.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is right offhand.
That is when the vitamin K, which clots the blood, is at its maximum point in your whole entire life. Day 8.
Nothing by accident, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I knew there was something.
yeah.
Would that be considered as a blood covenant?
It would be.
Yeah.
But it's what he went through,
Yeah, yeah.
She
So,
said vitamin K.
vitamin K, yes.
Okay.
Pay for clock.
That's that water.
Well, that's really glad I remembered it.
All right, let's move on here. You might want to read verses 15 through 18. We'll see some laughing.
Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and I indeed will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall come from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? You want me to go one more? Is that where you stop?
No, 18.
18, all right. And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you.
Okay, so, you know, so again, Abraham and Sarah have been waiting for this child to be born. And now God says, okay, it's going to happen. Let's do this.
Yeah, 100 years old.
And what does, again, the second time in this chapter that Abraham has fell down, wants to worship God, and this time kind of to laugh at God like, are you serious? You know? And is this really possible? And again, talking about their age, you know, it's 100 years old, 90 years old, you know, what are you thinking? And again, you know, and again, it's same like us. I mean, you know, we see people, you know, again, you know, you see some people that have children at 50 years old. It's like, whoa, man, they're old. I mean, that was a fear I had. I keep figuring up like, okay, when Crystal had our kids, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be this old when they graduate from high school. That's old. I mean, like, yeah, when little Jordan gets graduates high school, I'll be almost 60.
Whoa.
I'm talking to the wrong crowd, aren't I? Yeah. Like, you know, I'll have classmates who will have great grandchildren by that time, possibly. I mean, man, I'm not even, getting going, you know. And so, but again, you know, see that you know, Abraham is now he's in unbelief and blown away by what God's saying. And then 19 through 22, Anybody wanna read that?
Then God said, "No, Sarah, your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall get 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation."
Okay, so, we see there, again, what God's doing, he's telling them, hey, you're gonna name your son Isaac, okay? But he also gives that promise of to Ishmael. Okay, hey, here's what Ishmael's gonna have. And again, here in a minute, we're gonna see this, but, you know, Ishmael is circumcised the same day that Abraham is. I mean, that's just kinda like, you know, I'm gonna picture it possibly, may not be like that, may not be like that, but it's kinda like when you work cattle. You just line them up and, you know, move them right through there.
You know, if Muslims do that.
I don't get it.
The little small guillotine.
They're gonna
Oh,
put,
yeah.
they're gonna put their head in the chute too.
I don't know if they do or not. I don't think they
Yeah.
do.
Maybe so,
Yeah,
maybe so.
Right here, you've got Ishmael being called into the same covenant. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly, yeah, that's an important thing, is that, you know, God, you know, that's the thing I think about this as I've read this and kinda, as I've grown through studying this a little bit, is that, you know, a lot of times we think about Ishmael and think about a bad guy he is. But you know, I mean, God described him when he was born, or when he might be born what he was gonna be like. But he never said he was a terrible guy. You know, he never disowned him. You know, and here, he's gonna have the same blessing that Isaac's gonna have. You know, in a sense. And so I think, man, again, kinda, the thing is, man, God's love for everybody. You know, his promises are true to everybody.
You think about that too hard, that gets awful complicated.
It does, it does. I mean, and that's the thing. I think sometimes we maybe, you know, think about some of these truths too much. And so just realizing what God does and who he is.
But why did God describe him like he did? A wild man, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
why did he describe him like that? Why did he make a comment?
Knew his nature.
Exactly.
Knew his nature.
and that's the other thing in this a little bit. I don't know, again, if it's just, you know, wasn't important for us to know at this time, but again, through this time, you never hear of any bad stuff as he's growing up. Again, I don't know if he was, you know, a terrible child. You know, it doesn't talk about him in this time, because again, a little bit, and let me go ahead and finish this chapter out real quick, because again, we see that, so I don't say we're going to get to that in a minute. Verse 23, so Abraham took his son Ishmael, and those born in his household, or purchased, every male among the members of Abraham's household, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin on that very day, just as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised. And his son Ishmael was 13 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised. On that same day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised. And all the men of his household, whether born in his household or purchased from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. So again, that circumcision, important, but again, I just, you know, that love, but also, you know, again, talk about that wild nature that he's going to have. And at 13 years old, we know that, you know, again, even in our world today, those boys can be wild, can't they, at that age? Or could start to be wild at that age sometimes. You know, if they're allowed to be that way. And I think about that with Ishmael. You know, his dad says, hey, come over here, son. I got to do a little operation on you. You know? And you know, why didn't he revolt?
He might have, they just didn't say it.
Maybe
Why didn't we revolt?
Ishmael.
Ishmael, saying,
Maybe if he's this, you know, somewhat described as a wild child, you know, gonna be a wild guy,
Maybe this is what drove him over the edge.
maybe so.
I think it would.
We're kicking and screaming.
I don't know how big
Probably started
Abraham
running when he heard about it.
was. Abraham might have been a big guy.
You know,
And when he said, come here,
and I'm gonna tell you, next Wednesday night, you know, last week, we're gonna skip some chapters, and we're gonna go to the sacrifice of Isaac. But, and again, so I'm gonna share a little bit. But again, I think about, you know, Isaac at that time, when he goes to sacrifice Isaac, he's gonna be over 100 years old. Okay? And, you know, again, you're gonna get this next Wednesday night also, again, because it's a story that blows my mind, is that Isaac is gonna be about 13 years old or so. And in my mind, a lot of times I'm thinking, man, I just can't picture, you know, a 100-year-old man chasing around a 13-year-old kid, saying, hey, come here, I wanna tie you up.
now you don't want to equate 100 years old then with a 100-year-old
That's
now.
true.
Yeah.
True, true.
Yeah,
There's a difference.
there's a huge difference, there has to be.
Huh?
There has to be a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember how old Abraham lived to be, but it seemed to me like he was 150 or 60 or something like that.
Let's look there. I wanna say,
I had to read it.
I saw that somewhere. 175 years old.
Yeah.
So he would live another, you know, 75, 60 years
He
old.
was,
Just in his
he was
prime.
mid- he was middle-aged at that time,
Yeah, yeah.
a little past middle-aged.
But though, again, though, you know, the other thing about that is again, again up here in verse 15, you know, when God says, hey, Sarai's gonna have a child, it's gonna name it Isaac, and Abraham laughed.
Well, still yet, I think
Yeah.
even at that, they were past what they would have considered to be childbearing age.
Yeah,
But I get, the thing I think about though with Isaac, and I'm gonna say with Ishmael right here, is that the way Abraham lived his life made an impact on his kids. Because I mean, I you know, again, you know, I'm gonna share this again next Wednesday, but you'll hear it twice, once each week, right? You know, again, as they get ready to go up that mountain, you know, what does Isaac say to Abraham? We have the wood, we have the fire,
Or have sacrifice.
where's the sacrifice at? And yet, and Abraham just says, God's gonna provide.
Right.
And he goes with him.
Why wouldn't he?
You know,
Would a son think that his father would use him as sacrificial?
Or would he wouldn't believe his father when he said that God's gonna provide?
right.
but again, that trust of his father, he's trusting him, he knows to trust him. And again, you know, he goes up there, again, I don't know, but again, just to see you tie that son up and lay him on that altar. To me, I think I just picture it takes some obedience and trust of your father. You know, and it's more than what, you know, I don't know if I could do that. You know, and I think about Ishmael here, you know, Abraham calls him over and says, hey, come over here, we're gonna circumcise you. And pulls out that sharp knife and why would he sit there and let him do that? You know, and again, in my heart, I just think that, you know, this journey that Abraham has been on with God, you know, has grown Abraham into somebody that's faithfully trusting God. But again, it's reflected in his children.
Isaac saw that.
Yeah.
Isaac watched his dad. But
Yeah.
why would he think any different?
Yeah. And so, again, that's the thing, yeah, again, so he knew to trust his dad. He knew that, hey, you know what, if dad says it, if dad says God's gonna provide it,
He knew the relationship
Yeah.
that his dad had with the Lord.
yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, he knew that relationship, and again, you know, I wonder that sometimes in our own lives is do our children, do those around us know our relationship to the Lord? If we say, man, you can trust God, does our life reflect it so much? People say, man, you know, he said it, Bob said it, I know I can trust what Bob said because his God's been faithful to him.
I know the relationship I had with my dad,
Mhm.
and I believe that if my dad would have asked me to do those things, I would have done.
You didn't think any otherwise.
I wouldn't have,
didn't.
I wouldn't have questioned it.
You couldn't, I mean, you could, but you didn't.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You revered and respected your dad.
Yes, you just,
And you would have done what
he told
he told you to do.
And it was also one of those things too, probably, too, I wish it was like that today, but, you know, you also respect and revere those adults around you, you know?
And think of all the people that was already getting circumcised. There
Yeah.
had to be a big thing
Oh, yeah.
around there. I mean, there was a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, so,
yeah, I mean, a massive amount of people.
yeah. You're not my dad. I'm out of here.
And so, again, I think about that, you know, just that, man, what Abraham did and how he lived his life, the impact it made on them. I was going to try to get to chapter 18, a little bit of that, but again, in that, makes sense just to look here at how, again, when the visitors come to see Abraham, again, they talk about having a child and stuff, and again, Sarah hears them predicting that, and she laughs at that. But then also, the third time I'm going to quit after that is in chapter 21, you know, and don't really know exactly all the situation here, but in 21, chapter 21, verses 6 and 7, and it sounds like her and Abraham are sitting around talking, and she says this, Sarah said, God has made me laugh, and everyone who hears will laugh with me. Also said, who would have told Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne a son for him in his old age? You know, she's kind of like, man, I mean, who's going to believe this, that Sarah would have nursed a child? You know, and here I am in my old age, and I'm doing this. You know, and again, you know, things that God does is amazing. It's in His time, and yet we've got to trust and obey Him. We keep our head up, looking towards Him, because He wants to do incredible things in our life. You know, and beyond, again, kind of like Sarah talking here sometime, and Abraham a little bit. You know, He's going to do it when it doesn't seem possible, when you want to give up. You know, God's never, Toby Mac sings a song that says that, you know, God's never early, God's never late, He's right on time.
At 6 and 7, I take that to be more of a declaration of her joy that she had because she was able to conceive a child.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so again, I'm going to spill the beans. Again, next Wednesday night, we're going to look there at the trip, the week-long trip, as I call it, that Abraham and Isaac take. And again, kind of just something that God's kind of laid on my heart about that a little bit, that just, but yeah, I just, you know, may you read that and come with your thoughts on that chapter, that trip, because I think it's a beautiful thing. I'll say that. It's a beautiful thing. It's beyond what we can imagine. And again, something we hopefully we desire to have an experience like that, in a sense. Okay? So come next Wednesday, ready to hear. Let me pray for us before the lights go out. Because it is getting dark tonight. It's 30 minutes later, though, isn't it? So, let me pray for you.
Ricker in a little bit.
Yeah, it is. Quick stop. Dear God, I just come and thank you for this day. I thank you for this time, God. And I thank you, God, for your word, God. You reveal your love throughout history, God, to your people. And God, your promises you make to us, God. But God, you don't love just certain people. You love all people, God. And I pray, God, you'd help work in my heart and others' hearts, God, that we would love everyone unconditionally, just as you love us, God. And God, I pray also, God, that we would trust you, and where you send us and where you take us, God, what you call us to do. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.